Dear colleagues, I want to thank you for having me here, especially on the organizing committee to inviting me to present this. I'm going to talk about where are the limits of the digital visualization and if there are any limits of that. So my work is based on a few things from the physics which are important for the imaging, which is the concept of simultaneous contrast, modified illumination, wavelength-based depth of field enhancement, and even fluorescent imaging. This is what I had achieved with the Ingenuity, because this is my favorite toy, let's say. I work with it, I love it, I think it's on the forefront of the digital visualization, and a lot of things can be useful, because if we compare the classic color microscope with the digital color image, there is not much of a difference. But when we put additional imaging modalities over the color image, suddenly we might get more advantage in terms of detecting details in the tissues and even functional data as fluorescent imaging. So here is an example of fundus enhancement based on the yellow wavelength, because the yellow wavelength is the most reflected wavelength from the fundus. As you see in the regular image, we lose the transparency of the pieces, and when we apply a digital filtering over it, we might improve the image. This is really important example of eye of hemophthalmos, showing how with the pedal of the constellation we can control simultaneously and choose with the new imaging modes, which might enhance the blue light, it might enhance the details and the contrast in the picture, which will allow us to make capsulorhexis or cataract surgery without using any dyes in an eye with obviously really thick and old hemophthalmos. So having the ability to cycle simultaneously in between your imaging modes will provide you with the best possible contrast situation where you can see your tissues. Now you can see even the autofluorescence of the vessels, so you can see where are the blood flows in the vessels. Now you might see with the newly developed tissue detail mode, you see the hemophthalmos behind the lens, and now you see perfectly well the capsule without using any dye. So we assume that less dye we use, less harm we might do to the endothelium, for example. So we can cycle again in between other digital filters to see if we might achieve a better contrast in this situation. So it's up to the imagination or to the vision of the surgeon how he will use the capabilities of the digital surgical system. So here you might see that it's a perfectly doable the rhexis without any dye. This is another example of where over the regular image we might add the so-called Ingenuity factor, which is basically enhancing the contrast and highlights in the picture. So we might extract more from the transparent edges where it is needed. Even if we create a fundus enhancement filter, which is our proprietary filter, we might add the NGF factor to further improve what we created before. So you see how sharp is the image and how well we might see the transparent tissues. This is other filter with Ingenuity factor. The world is heading to modifying not only the camera settings but also illumination of the microscope. Alcon probably in the future will surprise us with something like that. But when we illuminate with a certain wavelength, we might extract more reflectance from the surface of the eye. You see here how the capsule is actually shiny. It's not only transparent, but it shines here. So this is a microscope with modified light. You see the fundus reflex, it shines. It's not the regular red reflex. And this is one of my favorite filters, which is neutral white plus polarized light from the microscope. We know from the histological microscopy that polarized eye increases the contrast in the image and the sharpness. You see the texture of the iris, which is quite sharp. This is an example how we can play with the image and we can extract more and more data from our surgical field. The guidance, really important. We see an eye with cyclotorsion, which is perfectly caught by the system, and when we are using the guidance which is directly incorporated in the Ingenuity, we might do a better job, because it's well proven that the digital marking is way better than the manual marking when we are talking about toric lenses. With high demanding lenses like multifocals, EDOF premium lenses, it's also important to align them to the visual axis. This is something that Ingenuity at the moment can provide you with simultaneously and with a really streamlined workflow if you are working with a biometer as the Argus, for example. This is another example of ILM enhancement. You see, this is the regular image. Then we can choose our own filters, and also we can choose a pre-built filters. For example, this is an ILM enhancement filter which I created a long time ago, but then you will see the comparison between this image and the so-called Blue Boost filter, which now is pre-built in the Ingenuity. You see, suddenly everything is highlighted, and if we see better, obviously we work better. This is another example of intraoperative fluorescein angiography, which gives us intraoperative navigation, because we can do a selective laser in the areas where we don't have a perfusion, and actually it gives us functional data and brings us more closer to our colleagues from neurosurgery. Here you can see the vessel appearance. We well know that in diabetic eyes there is a venous stasis. One of the vessels seems to be filled with blood, but it's not perfused. You see, there is no fluorescein there. These are phenomena which we normally cannot see during the surgery. And now after the indentation, suddenly we see a reperfusion of this vessel. This is something which makes the level of our performance on, let's say, next step. This is another example of so-called fluoroscopic vitrectomy, where you can see the vitreous way better than the other staining agents. Thank you.